I'm very excited to have all of you here. This is not only exciting for us, it's just that it's Foothill royalty here, not only on the panel, but also I know out in the audience. So we're just excited to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of Foothill High School. But also, this is our first discussion with program since the pandemic, so that's kind of a milestone for us as well. So I am the executive director. My name is Sarah. I'm just going to quickly go over the evening with all of you. We're going to do the panel here for about an hour, or a little bit more, or a little bit less, depends on how interesting all of you are. Just kidding. But no pressure. And then after that, we're going to take a little bit of time so you guys can head into the hallway, get some wine. We'll have some refreshments in the back in the gift shop area while we do a quick move of the chairs and stuff like that, because this is not actually what the exhibit looks like with all these chairs in it. So we have a few things we'll move back and shift around, and then you can come back and enjoy the exhibit and all the memorabilia that hopefully will spark a lot of great memories. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our education director, Rachel Brickle, who is going to be leading our discussion tonight. So thank you all for joining.
Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the Museum on Main and also to the Falcons at 50 exhibit this evening. We are so excited to be doing this panel and really excited to see all of your faces here tonight to celebrate the 50-year anniversary of Foothill. I want to thank especially Cherie Heathershaw, who I think, she's sitting right here, for helping me bring together a lot of these panel members that are here tonight to join us. So during the reception, she's going to be located at the back by the counter over there with some binders that she brought with lots of photos and newspaper articles and other types of materials about former teachers and staff members from Foothill. So if you want to see any of that, feel free to visit her in the back by the counter. To kick off the opening, we are going to spend some time with these 5 wonderful former Foothill teachers and administrators who graciously agreed to participate in a discussion and a reflection on their years at the school. So we have amazing inside knowledge here with us this evening, and I will ask a few questions, if maybe not even a few questions, because I would love for the people that are here that are formal. Well, raise your hand if you attended Foothill. Yes. Raise your hand if you worked at Foothill. Amazing. Raise your hand if you worked and attended Foothill as a student. Anyone worked there and was a student? Yes. Yes, and we do have some people in the audience that were able to join us. So we have the first principal of Foothill here, who is Neil Sweeney, of course. Yes. And we also have the current principal of Foothill, I believe, who's here with us, Sebastian Bull. Thank you for being here. And then we also have a school board vice president, Mary Jo Carian, sorry if I said it wrong, who is here. Yes, thank you for being here. Awesome. And then the last question was, raise your hand if you were a parent of a Foothill student. Yes. So it's a big reunion tonight, very exciting. So let's begin with some intros before we dive into our questions. So we're going to start on the very end here. So Tom Hansen, when the school opened in 1973, Tom Hansen was the high school's first basketball coach, and would serve as the head coach for the next 20 years. Besides coaching, Hansen was a physical education teacher and also served as the school's athletic director for more than a decade. As the athletic director, he helped build a strong, long-lasting, and successful athletics program at the school during his long tenure there. Next to him, we have Matt Sweeney. He did his student teaching at Foothill in 1983. While his brother, I love this story, was a senior at Amador High School, so he had to go do student teaching at Foothill. While teaching, he coached a very successful Foothill football team for 31 years, stepping down in 2018. Awesome, yeah. He continued to coach the Foothill softball team until he did fully retire in 2022. Is that right? And he was also awarded the Cal High Sports State Softball Coach of the Year in 2019. Yes. Next to Matt, we have Kit Little. Kit Little also did her student teaching with the school at Foothill and then started full-time in 1979, is what we think, based on we looked in the yearbooks when we were here. When she started teaching, the name of her department was called Homemaking, but by the end of her career, she was teaching in a culinary arts career pathway, which composed of various culinary classes along with a capstone village catering business. So she developed a really cool hands-on catering course in which students provided food services for local events for the community and the school district. A lot of the stuff about the culinary and catering class is in the case over there. So really, really cool. Next to Kit Little, we have Dr. Iris Burke, who was the Foothill principal from 1990 to 1996 and was the first, this is true, female high school principal in Pleasanton. Yes, okay, yeah. Under her leadership, Foothill offered exemplary and quality educational programs, and in 1994, Foothill was recognized for the first time as a California Distinguished School by the California School Board. And the school would continue to be recognized as a distinguished school numerous times since then. And then last but not least, Bob Moorefield. Bob was the first band director from when the school first opened in 1973 and served as the director for 41 years. Yeah. When he first started the band program, it had about 17 members, but due to his recruiting efforts, the band would grow to, I think, 56 by its second year. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Over the decades, under his leadership, the program would continue to strengthen and win numerous awards and trophies, and even performed in the Tournament of Roses Parade. But Bob also started the famous Foothill Band Review, which attracts dozens of outstanding bands from throughout California and beyond to this day. So let's give it up for all of our teachers here and administrators. Okay, so we're going to dive into some questions. I will ask the first one, but please, please, please think of ones you want to ask, because I would love for the audience to ask more than me. Yes. So the first question I'm going to ask the panel members to kick this off is, do you remember your first day on the Foothill campus? And we can broaden that to your first year if the first day is not as memorable. And what drew you to working at Foothill High School? Would one of you like to begin?
I'd like to take a crack at that.
Perfect.
So, my first day, 1983, I taught in a classroom C6, and it was a tile floor. It was a part of the library, and I was 23 years old, and I was so nervous. I was teaching civics, and so the students were only 4 to 5 years younger. I wore a short sleeve button-down shirt with a tie. I was so nervous. The sweat was pouring off my arms, and it was pooling around the tile floor. And but I got through it, and I loved going to Foothill every day of my life. In the audience in the back, Eric Heinitz, would you raise your hand, please? Eric and I got hired on the exact same day in 1983.
August 31st.
I was applying for the social studies job, and this guy was way smarter than me, and I thought he was applying for the social studies job, but he was applying for the English job, thank God.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, Kate?
Okay, I did my student teaching in 76. It's 55 years. At that time, teaching jobs were really different than now. It was really, really difficult to find a teaching job at that time. I mean, you really had to hunt, and you really had to be willing to move, hundreds of miles maybe in order to find a spot. So when I was finishing up in 76, I got clever, semi-clever, and I wrote a one-unit course to be able to go out to 15 different home economics departments in the Bay Area to supposedly compare, contrast classes, teaching styles, facilities, etc. I was looking for a place to student teach. And my instructor at college agreed that she would make the trip. She usually just did that in the San Jose area, Santa Clara County area. But she agreed to come here if I could find a spot to do that. So my first day at Foothill, that was one of the schools that I wanted to check out. An almost brand new school. And I remember meeting the home economics teacher and feeling so comfortable on campus. We both found out that we loved tennis. She was coaching tennis. I played tennis, I've played since I was about 5, but I played tennis in college. Taught tennis for the rec department a little more for 5 years. And so I was assistant coach, and I was immediately in as far as she was concerned, assistant coach. So my first day was meeting her, seeing the department, and feeling comfortable in a school that I was going to love forever.
My first day at Foothill, this gentleman, Mr. Neil Sweeney, hired me in January of '73, and school wasn't going to start. And this folder here, this folder here, he put together because the year before we started, he was hired as principal at Foothill High, and he was trying to develop his staff. So we met once a month at Amador High School, and through those meetings, he decided who he was going to hire. Fortunately, I was the last guy hired in January 1973. But my first experience on the campus of Foothill High School wasn't at Foothill High School. It was at the Mormon Church, and we were at the Mormon Church. I believe it was 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks. But I was so excited. Number one, to get a job. I was working for Pepsi-Cola at the time, and it was kind of boring. I wanted to teach and coach, and Mr. Sweeney, fortunately, recognized me and hired me. So, and it was a great run. And I have 2 of my former students that I taught driver training. Way back in the day when we had driver training. And I'm still here.
Okay, does anyone want to share their first day? Oh, perfect. All right, Bob.
Before I share my first day, I like to share the reason that I came to Foothill. I had already been teaching for 5 years in Stockton at St. Mary's High School, and I wanted to start my own program. And so when I came over here and interviewed with Mr. Sweeney, I thought this is a great place to start a program, and it really was. I remember the first couple of days, or a couple of weeks in the church, and following that, I found a lot of places on campus that could become a band room. We started in the home ec room.
Yeah.
And from the home ec room, we went to the B building into the center area. IMC, yep. And then from there, we went to the lower library, and I remember seeing the area of a drawing of a fantastic band room that was going to be built at Foothill High School with a theater. But from that, we followed on down to the lower gym, and we were in the lower gym for quite a while, which still wasn't a band room. And I have to tell a quick story. we went down there from the lower library into the gym area, and we played one note, and it was just reverberating all over the place. So I told the kids back to the lower library. The principal comes running out. What are you doing? I said, we can't be in there. People will go deaf. What do you need to do? Well, we need carpets all the way around, from the top of the door to the ceiling. This was on Thursday. Monday morning it was all ready to go. So fantastic work by the principal and the school district to get that done.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so I would love to know if anyone in the audience has a question that they'd like to ask yet. Anyone out there yet? Still thinking about it? Oh, wonderful.
Yes. For those of you that had the early years and then had our children, how did that feel?
So the question was, for those of you who had the early years and then later your children, how did that feel?
I had that experience. I had, I think, 7 or 8 kids in my band that eventually graduated, got married, and their kids were in the band. And I was thinking at the time, I'm getting old. And then I had one kid who was a kid of a kid in band. That was close to retirement.
Do you remember who that was? Who was the person?
I can't remember.
I don't know if I would be considered the early years, but I started in '83. I guess that is the early years. I only had a handful, and to be honest, they were their own person. So I didn't. I never. This is what the dad did. This is what my expectation wasn't like that. They were on their own merit, so to speak. Not as in my 37 years, not as many of those students came through for me. Probably 3 or 4 in my years there.
You had me and my son. We were both pretty quiet. So you probably I was in your first year of class at '83.
Okay.
Son.
On mine, I don't remember. I think you have a finite number of names in your line, and I maxed out a long time ago.
Anybody else want to answer that?
Are there any more questions? Oh, great.
I just have a comment. My daughter graduated in '83 from Foothill, but from being there all this time, I wanted to say to you, Mr. Moorefield, you put Foothill on the map. We were so grateful because the band is what started. Football came later, baseball, etc., but in the beginning, those first 6-8 years, you put Foothill on the map. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll ask another question then. As a teacher, coach, or administrator, what were the biggest changes you saw? This could be in student life and sports and academics, between the time that you started working at Foothill and the time that you either moved on or retired. I'd like to take that.
That's one for ours.
Iris.
So I came in 1990 and was an outside person. As you can kind of tell, especially from those folks, there were a lot of historical people who had really firm roots in Pleasanton, and I didn't really know what the whole culture of the community was. It was a big learning curve. But from the time I arrived in 1990 until I left in 1996, the changes in many areas were significant in terms of technology. I think we were still doing attendance and everything by hand when I arrived. By the end, you know, we had all these computer systems and data, and academic achievement became a much greater focus by the time I left. I think winning the Distinguished School Award in 1994, and we were growing, so the increased number of students and new teachers that we hired many more diverse teachers that were not necessarily from the community, and in fields that didn't exist when the school was open. We started a whole technology department and applied physics and many more advanced placement classes. And the number of students who aspired to go into college really, really increased. And the number getting into prestigious schools outside of the immediate area increased. So, you know, there were already great things going on, but they definitely improved. And during the mere 6 years I was there, like compared to 40, there were NCS championships and, you know, band awards, just incredible. So it was definitely a time of very forward, positive growth. And we did a total architectural renovation. We spent, I think, 2 years with everybody in portables. I remember Wayne Miller called his room the shroom room because the portable leaked and he was growing some of the so, yeah, we went through some interesting changes between 1990 and 1996.
And the clocks did not agree when you're in portables and running a high school when all the clocks are a little different.
Yes, it's called honor system time.
In 1973, there was only 333 freshmen. There's only freshmen on the campus. And the strange thing, when you drive by Foothill High School then, there was only 15, 20 cars in the parking lot. We used to do our PE in the parking lot because the students didn't drive until they became end of their sophomore and junior years. So, and then I think it was 1989, we had 1475, and now I believe
2,200.
Pardon?
2,200.
Now 2,200. So the growth of school obviously skyrocketed.
So students in 1983 and students in 2020, no different. What's different is we as a society have changed. I was asked in one of my last back to school nights in 2017 or 18, same question, what was different? And my response to that parent was, we as parents don't let our kids skin their knees anymore. And so that's what's changed. Well, I thought the kids were the kids in 1983 and the kids in 2020, no different in my experience. And very, very fortunate to teach in this community because so many of the young people were so motivated to succeed, and that's a tribute to where the houses they came from. And the people that I worked with, it was just, like I said earlier, was going to Foothill every day was a great thing in my career.
Any other questions from the audience?
Quick, easy one. Somebody in this room wants to know the answer. Why were the buildings at Foothill painted red?
There must have been a bargain on red paint. I mean, I can't tell you how many meetings, contentious meetings, Foothill advocates had with district people about those red. And we kept being told, it's a district decision. So that's my, if anybody else has some answers.
And we probably got a break on the price.
That's what we were told, tongue in cheek, but you know, they said you're part of the district. And
Mr. Keaton,
Yes.
I heard that he was colorblind and he would paint
Buster never would have done something like that.
Okay.
No.
They've gone through some planning though, I think.
No.
Like somebody checked it.
There were committees. Nothing was ever a unilateral decision. There were always committees and, you know.
I think I saw another hand that if someone had a question. Oh, great.
No, I don't have a question. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Keith Sweet. I was hired before any of these folks. Neil hired me to go to Foothill High School in 1971, but Jack Keegan had gone to Chicago to work on his master's, and Neil didn't think he was going to come back, so he hired me. Then Jack said, no, I want to come back. So then Neil moved me to Harvest Park, which had just opened. So I spent 2 years at Harvest Park, and then Neil said, would you like to come to Foothill High School? So I did. The things that I remember about the early days is flexibility. Bob said he taught music in the home ec room. I taught algebra with Bob in the home ec room. So I tried to teach algebra when your band was playing. Fortunately, the band wasn't very good. I only had about how many students in the band?
Started with 17.
17 students. And I was really impressed with Bob because every time one of the students playing an instrument couldn't play it right or didn't play it right, he would pick up the instrument and play it right. Unfortunately, he played it really, really loud when he played it right. So to be flexible, Bob did, allowed himself and his band to go down to the lower band room. Where did I teach math next? The lower library. I taught math in the upper library during math. So we had a great time. I love all these people. I taught other places, but drove 150 miles to be here.
Okay, any other questions out there? Perfect, yes.
My name is Neil. I'm Wilford Global. I was one of before Foothill started, they pulled students, Mr. Sweeney, from every junior high school that was going to be feeding into Foothill. While we were in the 8th grade, they pulled us all together, and we got to choose the mascot, design the school crest, pick colors. So if you don't like them, I don't want to hear about them. All that good stuff. But it was pretty cool. But I remember sitting around a conference table with Mr. Sweeney, and I mean, it was pretty awesome. But my question for you is, where did the tag idea come from? Because it ended up being a really great way to bring these students from all over. These students from all over, very disjointed. A lot of parents that were going, we don't want our kids to go to this brand new high school that has no record, as freshmen. So we were upperclassmen for 4 years, which is not a great thing in some ways. But the tag group, I think, in so many ways, really bonded us. I'm just curious, how did that come up?
Yeah, that's David. She wants to know how you came up with the tag idea.
So you got to give him the
Yeah.
I'm giving him the credit for that.
Foothill. When you talked about establishing Foothill, it was kind of a far-out idea because Amador was a fairly prestigious high school, and students in town didn't want any part of that new facility out on Foothill Road. So it was up to us and our staff to kind of develop that spirit early on. So I appreciate your comments. We did make a real effort to ensure a pride in Foothill from day one. It was to attend Amador at that time, you were on top of the world. It was a good school, but we had to establish Foothill, and we had to do it quickly. Fortunately, it worked out with the staff we had.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh wait, we're gonna
I'm Don Ratch, and I was original first year for the. So I'm going to tag on a few of these things. In terms of where did tag come from, it came from Moorefield, Washington. There was a school up there called Mariner High School that we looked at in terms of some of the things they did, and that was part of the
teacher advisory.
Yes, yeah. So that's where that came from. In terms of the rooms, let me just tag on there a little bit. First 2 weeks in the Mormon church, in a room about the size of just this little group over here, we had kids on their knees doing science labs on chairs. That they were the lab desks. And then during that first year, Bob was talking about where the band went. I started at the Mormon church. Then there was an A-shaped building that became the shop. At that time was the shop and something, and one little leg of the A was the science room. And we had both 45 or 90-minute periods. So I got, at the start of a 90-minute period, 10 minutes to tell the kids what they were doing and get at it, and then the saws got turned on. So it was tough going that first year. It was,
but you said you could teach anywhere.
Let me explain the Mormon church situation. When I was at Amador, the Latter-day Saints had not built their new facility, and they used to use a classroom at 6:30 every morning at Amador, which we accommodated them. So when I found out that Foothill wasn't going to be ready for us, I contacted the church, and they openly invited us to stay there. They were very gracious hosts for those 2 weeks.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the audience? No? Okay, well, I'll ask one. Over your tenure at Foothill, was there another teacher or colleague who you looked to for advice or mentorship? What was the best advice, if you can remember, that person or someone else gave you?
So remember I said that I signed on not only to be a student teacher, but also an assistant tennis coach. So every day during season, I would get done with school and run and change my clothes really quick. Because I also taught one science class. Now, I had a lot of science in college, but as one person in this room will definitely attest to, Mr. Don Ratch, I was not a science teacher by any means. But he offered to help me. It turned out to be an everyday process. Every day, for a half an hour, I ran over to his room. He mentored me, got me ready to teach the next day, and he hung in there for the long run. And that was the spirit of teachers at Foothill High School.
And I would like to acknowledge all of the people at Foothill, particularly people on this panel who trained me. I mean, I remember Matt doing professional development teaching the faculty how to use coaching strategies in their classrooms, how to do drills and break things into small components and give positive, targeted feedback. Kit taught me the culture of the environment, which I really did not know, and it's an ongoing process. And from Moorefield, I learned how to manage, not to the level he did, but how to keep multiple balls in the air, how to run a big organization with multiple components that all are discrete but need to come together and all sound perfect. And I mean, the things that Bob taught, and maybe he didn't even know it, fundraising, the bingo game that they ran, and how he taught me how to cultivate and appreciate a loyal parent group and technology. This was back in the 90s, in the early 90s. He had a MIDI computer program on which he choreographed the entire band shows. The first time I saw that, it was mind-boggling. Here you see on his computer, here come the drums, and then here come the winds, and here come the percussions, and the flags, and the rifles, and all choreographed to the music in perfect timing. And I mean, he taught me so much that it was unbelievable. And by the way, the first time I ever saw a kid on the campus with a rifle, I nearly had a heart attack. Nobody told me that these were not real rifles. I thought we had a sniper running around. Anyway, so yes, underneath this is white hair, and much of it was earned at Foothill. But the learning that went on, I mean, and the teachers were so incredible at their subject areas, but they taught all kinds of things, like Kit described Don teaching, her the science she needed. But they all they came together as a team and really, really worked hard. And as you heard, Cherie in the library and Kit in the home ec room were the hostesses, because they, welcomed all kinds of subject areas. So another one mentor I do want to mention, you had already mentioned Buster McCurtain. Buster kept me on a level play. I had a lot of bosses. There, as anyone who works in administration knows, you run your school, but you're middle management. So there was the superintendent and a whole bunch of assistant superintendents and directors and coordinators, and they all beat on me. Nothing was ever good enough. Nothing was ever right. But Buster would lift me back up again. And he was never my direct supervisor, but he was an amazing, amazing man. So I give a lot of credit to him. I still keep in touch with him. He's in Tulsa, Oklahoma now. Yeah. Thank you. I'm sorry I went on so long.
So, in choosing a mentor or big influence, I really believe there's so many people at Foothill that had such a huge impact for me professionally and on a personal level. We really had a special culture. Everybody was on the same page. It didn't matter what subject matter you taught. Tom Hansen had such a belief in family and passed that on to all of us at Foothill. I really believe that Tom was the key person behind that family feeling. Roger Dabney, another one who hired me originally in 1983. I told Don a story when we got here. It's about Tom Frost. In 1983, Tom, I believe, was it Fire Breaks? What was that organization, the anti-nuclear stuff? I came over to your home for a seminar, and Tom did a demonstration with BBs, and one BB represented all the firepower up through World War II, including the atomic bombs. And then he had 5,000 BBs, which we had amassed in our arsenal of mutual assured destruction, that you drop the one BB into a metal pot, and you have your students sit on the floor, close your eyes, and you listen to that sound. And then you take the 5,000 BBs and pour those BBs, and it is so powerful. And I told Don, because Tom was talking to someone, Tom, I did that demonstration in my U.S. history class until the year I retired. And so the influence that people have on you was across the board. It wasn't, yes, I love sports, but I loved history. I loved U.S. history, and I had so much respect. Eric Heinitz in the back started a Latin program. My nickname for Eric is Jesus Christi. If you look at him, here we go. Anyway, it was a great place, unbelievable place, and it was all the way down. Old-timer Skip Mohat, I don't know if anybody remembers the name Skip Mohat. Skip Mohat wrote me a letter when I got hired as head football coach. And he said, you'll only be as successful as your administration and fellow teachers being on board with you. And so it's your job to go work with the other teachers and the administration, because if you don't have a supportive administration and you don't have fellow teachers that are in your corner, you're going to die on the vine. And I was very blessed. All of my administrators and all my peers were awesome people and are still awesome people.
Very good.
Okay, any other questions, comments from the audience? So Sarah, I have a question. Here, take the mic.
So my question is for the panel, and also probably for some of you Foothill alum or teachers in the audience. What are traditions that are just Foothill, or that like are very iconic to Foothill? Is there anything that Foothill did a little bit different that is like key to the culture? Did I stump you up?
We didn't have fences for a long time.
Oh, okay. So free range teaching. I don't know. I know you said you were part of the early class, right? The first one. Anything that's like we did this weird thing? I saw in the early yearbook there was like a falcon handshake, like a claw handshake.
I think that was just
in the yearbook. Well, this is what happens in history. We see one picture and we commit to it. We're starting rumors. Oh, you got one and then you okay.
I'll comment on the word weird from my standpoint at least. We did for probably 3 years narrative report cards. We wrote out.
Sorry, just the mic.
We actually wrote out with 3 carbon copies narrative report cards for every student. And we only graded A, B, C, no credit. And there's a lot that could be said about all that. But it lasted about 3 years. And I probably, in that 3 years, probably had 3 all-nighters. So it was just an incredible experience, and I'll leave it at that.
That's definitely unique. And then you had something?
So as I said, I came in new to the district, and I don't really know what the tradition around graduation was, but when I was hired, the superintendent sat me down and said, you will fix graduation and you will make it a dignified ceremony. So maybe some of the people who preceded me could talk about that. I do remember a kid swallowing a fish. I think there was some mooning, but there may have been, but those of us who were in charge of graduation, and it was held in the, the fairgrounds. So we were, out in the fairgrounds, in the public, with a gazillion people in the audience, and those of us in charge of making it a dignified ceremony so that the students would shake hands with the board members in a dignified way and not move. changed the procession so that they were like going in one way and they had to be shaking hands. From the minute they stepped up the first 3 steps, they were occupied shaking hands with dignitaries until they went down the other 3 steps at the opposite end. So whatever that tradition was, I think was eliminated.
Okay. Yeah. Any more questions? Oh.
I have a question, I have a comment.
Oh, I'm going to pass you the mic.
Talking about the difference then and now. I was vice principal, I'm standing in the office. I'm looking out, and the student is carrying a gun across campus. The secretary said, "Who's that carrying a gun?" And I said, "Oh, he's going to English class. They're having demonstration speeches today." We didn't think of anything on it. That's what they did. Of course, you couldn't do that now, but we did want to keep them locked up in the car before they did their demonstrations. This isn't it, but I just want you to know that I haven't changed a bit. This picture was in the Valley Times. Tim Hunt took the picture when Foothill High School beat Granada for the first time. It was our seventh match, and we finally beat. So you can tell I was happy.
So I'll just ask one last question and then we'll close this out so everyone can spend some time just visiting with each other and having snacks and refreshments. So the last one I'm just going to ask you all is what was or still is your favorite Foothill memory that comes to mind? What is something that really sticks out to you when you think about your years working at Foothill? Bob?
I've got a lot of favorite memories, so I hope you're ready to be here for long. My favorite memories, really, the 5 performances for the Foothill band at their Pasadena Tournament of Roses Parade. The only band in Northern California to ever do that. Wow. One of my favorite memories. Another favorite memory was the time I actually coached golf for a while. And
in your spare time.
In my spare time. And we had, how far did we go, Matt? The 1 year, we won the state, I think.
I think you were in the top 3.
Top 3.
But you had a couple of those guys became professional golfers.
Yeah.
Pretty special group.
And that was a ton of fun, especially to the time when we got to take the kids down to Carmel and play at Pebble Beach and Spyglass Hill.
Going to Europe and not losing any kids.
We did a tour. We were invited by the city of Nice, France, to go to Europe for, what was it? But before we did that, we went to Europe, to Nice, France, for the time that they had before Easter. Anyway, we were invited to the city of Nice, and a friend of mine introduced us to the mayor of the city, and they decided to invite the Foothill band. They paid the entire bill for the Foothill band to go to flight, hotel, food. Some of the kids would go around town and they might want to have a pizza or something. They go in a pizza shop and try to pay for it, and they wouldn't let them make any money. Tremendous with the people of Nice, France. The other thing that we did that Iris was just mentioning was our shuttle tour. The band was in the Guinness World Book of Records from playing the longest distance, which was from Paris, France to London, England, non-stop, getting off the train, still playing, and then leading the London New Year's Day Parade, clear to the end, non-stop, and they played that. It was a ton of fun. My wife Ann, she said, "Is it over? Let's go do it again." So there's just a ton of memories from Foothill High School, and the wonderful students and the wonderful teachers that were there, and the wonderful experiences in different band rooms. I didn't finish with we were in the gym, and then after that we went into the auto shop on campus. I guess they closed down the auto shop, and so we were into the auto shop, and then unfortunately they did a beautiful job with that building, but they put the ceiling so low, and so with sound that was a bad thing. But the district really jumped in and put in sound absorbent systems and whatever. It turned into be a pretty darn good room. And the last thing I like to say is the band and my band boosters were absolutely fantastic, and the administration and the school district administration and the school board, the support that was given to Foothill High School and the Foothill High School band, I couldn't ever imagine anything more.
So before preparing for this event, when Larry Boston called me and I knew I was going to be asked about my memories of Foothill, I remembered the day we had a chemical spill and the whole campus had to evacuate, and the fire department came and took over, and it was awful. And then I remember a couple of other, really awful incidents. And I said, this, it can't all be that way. And I took out the yearbooks, and Cherie called me and sent me pictures, and I went into the garage and dug out my box, which had been, in the garage for many years. It was incredible. But memory is very selective. So now that I've had this wonderful opportunity to think back, I remember the graduations. I mean, those graduations were I still have a lump in my throat. When you've seen kids go from being freshmen all the way to graduating, and you know where they're all going to go, and you've had a million parent meetings and conferences with the teachers, and you're shaking their hands as they leave. I mean, graduations are like the most touching thing. And the ceremony when we were awarded the Distinguished School was, that was unbelievable. And the million conversations with all the teachers, the observations, the times going to every, athletic event, and the dances, and being at a high school is a huge amount of fun. The kids keep you happy and energized, and you can't be negative when you're around great teachers and involved parents who care, and you're in a community that values the education that's being provided. So I'm very grateful to have had the opportunity to go back and reflect, because it's been a long time since I've been connected with Foothill High School. So thank you all, and it was a great
I have a couple of memories. 1978-79 season, basketball season, in front of a turnaway crowd at Dublin High School. Foothill won, beat Amador for the championship. UVAL 38-35. And we went into North Coast as the 8th seed, playing against the number 1 seed, Berkeley, who was number 3 in the state, number 1 in the Bay Area. Won that game 54-47. So those are nice memories. I'd like to comment on this. The logo of Foothill, and it's on that sweatshirt right behind Cherie Hedeshaw. And people always were questioning that. This was designed by Mr. Sweeney and his student staff. Jan, you were involved with this.
Yeah.
And
so was my current husband.
It shows a falcon holding a plaque, and on the plaque there's 3 things, and they have the Foothill, they have a grapevine, and everybody questioned what the water tower was. And at the time we were getting students from Sunol, and Sunol wanted to be recognized, so they put the water tower on there, and it's still there from 1973.
Memories, best memory, that's really difficult to identify one memory. We had some incredible teams that I was very fortunate to coach. That'd be too hard to signify one of them as being better than another. I would say my best memory is the staff and how we all got along. And I'm from 8 kids. You had to be unselfish. You had to share, and I really felt like our faculty was that way. They were very unselfish and giving of their time, and I would say that for me, what made it such a special place to go to. It never felt like a job. When I was in college, like Kit said, there was no teaching jobs available really, and all my buddies who were going into business, they go, Sweeney, what are you going to do? You're going to be a teacher? You're not going to make any money. And I said, not that important to me. And through my career, all my buddies that went and go make money, they're still working and I'm retired. I didn't realize that when I was doing this, that they were going to pay me not to work. Unbelievable. And I used to say that every day is Saturday turns into Friday night, but it's better than that. There's no Sunday nights that turn into Monday mornings.
Yeah, one comment. There was a mention made about Sunol and that the logo and all that. It's in the hallway. There's a drawing done by a Sunolian, and I would love to be able to be in touch with him. His name is Zach Shearer. He drew this falcon head years ago, and it's framed. It's been in the library ever since. But the librarian let me borrow it for this exhibit. So if you go in the hallway, it's the very first item on display, and it's gorgeous. So thank you, Sunol people.
I have one. I was thinking about a comment that Matt made not long ago about kids really haven't all changed that much. One of the things that I think that we would hear about students often was how lazy they were, how not directed they were. And in my field, I found exactly the opposite. I started out in the 70s because that's what home ec was then. It was called homemaking, actually, when I first came into the field. And over the years, it wasn't just my idea. There were people throughout the United States doing this, and in not just the fields of home ec, but in all the career type, education type fields, electives. Turning our classes into the traditional kinds of what you think of when you were in school type of classes. Teaching all the skills for home ec, for instance. Is there something more important than family and knowing how to cook and knowing how to feed your family and consumer education and knowing how to budget and all of that? That's all still important and it's all still being taught. But what I decided to do on a career angle in my program was to start a catering business. And what I found that did was it had the kids acknowledge that the skills that they were learning were really valuable, not just at home, but in the workplace. And that when people would come to our place for events, or we went to their homes for events, they could see the customer personally, have them be amazed, those kids cook this, and then watch the kids working. Working in the food industry is hard work. It's heavy work, it's hard work, it's long hours. And I saw kid after kid after kid that you would never know. She would never have known that they could work that hard and have so much fun doing it. And even if they didn't go into it as a career, it didn't matter. It was a transferable skill. They learned how to work with people, they learned how to balance the books, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They were transferable skills is what we were teaching. And to see that play out time after time in an event, to see the amazement in the kids' eyes and the wonder that they had come together as a team to do this, but also in the customer's eyes. I never got tired of doing that.
I just want to say a couple other things that I was most proud of, and that is some of my students. Some of my students who now are professional musicians that make a living at it. Some of the students that are now teaching bands, that are band directors in schools. We've got Chris here is still playing the trombone in the community band, and all sorts of that. One of my students, who I've become very proud of, was Josh Butterfield, who became the band director after I retired. Unfortunately, he still should be the band director but he decided to become an administrator. Yeah. I didn't want to say that. but did a fabulous job. There's only been a couple band directors since I left. I've met the new band director for next year, and he seems very capable, very intelligent, very knowledgeable, and I think he's going to be around to keep the band tradition going, so I'm real happy about that.
Okay, so I want to thank, let's give one final round of applause to all of our partners here. That was wonderful. And before we go enjoy the reception, I think our curator, Ken McClendon, just had a brief thing that he wanted to say to you all, and then we can go enjoy the party.
Yeah, I often describe my role in these exhibits as ringmaster. Takes a lot of people to put one of these things together. I don't know if I'm going to be able to name everybody, but I want to thank the volunteers and fellow staff who helped assemble it, who helped with research, who helped with drawing things. Kylie, you still here?
Yeah. She's here. She's
anyway, Kylie Olson was, and one of the things I wanted to do so quick is we can get the overhead set up and get Kylie's illustration back on the screen. The people who came together, especially in the last couple of weeks before the show opened, and with things to help us display. Dion had her cheerleader uniform. Tom Stuck, actually, Tom was one of the first ones to provide material. Thank you, Tom. But yeah, the parents, Betsy Finney, Pat Kirscher. I'm doing name lists, and I'm going to leave people out. I'm going to apologize for that already. I'll just say thanks to everybody who helped make this show happen. And please enjoy it for the next month until we have to take it down to make room for the other people. Yeah.
All right, thank you all. So we're going to do a quick changeover, but this young lady right here would like to which I think is a great idea, have maybe all the Foothill teachers, administrators, anybody, librarians, come up here and we can do a group shot of everybody. I think that would be really special. So we will do a quick change, but we've got some pre-poured wine. We will be setting up the food if it's not already on the table. So please enjoy, and let's get all the Foothill people up here for one group shot. Thank you.